because Attorney Lara's already done a wonderful job of that early this morning. And I think Attorney Lara, being also the lead launcher or the topic launcher for this breakout session, you'll have more to share in continuation of your discussion earlier. So we all know, as discussed by Attorney Lara, that human trafficking is a global issue. And one of our focus in this meeting is more on the forced labor, that kind of trafficking, the forced labor. And as discussed by Attorney Lara, there's the back door that's usually used by traffickers in order to be not detected. And even if it's in NAIA, because of poor documentation, they still get away with it. So one of the questions that would like you to think about, and probably because there's also the discussion on climate change, you'll notice, because you're in this field of work, that every time that there's a disaster, there's also women, not just women, but even men being trafficked after every disaster situation, because people are trying to better their lives and they fall prey to these traffickers. So some of the questions that we would like you to think about as we continue in the discussion is, these are, first, what are the most significant approaches in human trafficking challenges? So what good have we done? Is legislation complete? Does legislation protect our people? Or is there something that we need to add to it? These are just some examples. What are the strengths? So in these approaches, what are the strengths and what are the significant gaps that we need to identify this morning? Second is, how can religious leaders provide a safe space for victims to come forward and report to those who can assist them or to those who prosecute their offenders? So do you think it's evident that our religious leaders are helping in these aspects? The next, how can organizations push for and advocate against forced labor? So what can we do? Religious organizations, partners, collaborations, what can we do together to advocate against forced labor? And number 4, how can interfaith communities work together to push for a global fight against human trafficking through international forums? So these are the 4 things that we would like you to focus on if we want to make the group circle smaller, but I think this is more comfortable. So I'd like to turn over the time to Attorney Lara, probably to lead out in these discussions. And we also invite, this is a breakout session, there is no specific presentation. Everybody can freely discuss and share their thoughts and ideas. And that's why we're capturing it here. So probably I'll ask Attorney Lara first for what approaches is being done in the Philippines that really addresses anti-human trafficking?
In terms of the approach of the Philippine government, we have operational, policy, partnership, and administrative approaches to combat trafficking. So let's start with partnership because it's an interfaith forum. So in terms of partnership, the Interagency Council, first and foremost, is an interagency body. So it's composed of 28 member organizations. So collaboration and coordination is at the core of human trafficking response. In the TIP report 2023, it was mentioned there that human trafficking is a shared challenge, so no singular agency or office or organization can combat it. So in terms of partnership, we're in partnership with the Department of Interior and Local Government, with the senior officials meeting on transnational crime, with the International Justice Mission. We're in partnership with the Justice Sector Coordinating Council, other organizations, and the list goes on and on. So also in terms of foreign governments, for example, the Thailand government, through the Royal Thai Police, approached the IACAT to help them organize their own dialogue on human trafficking, because we did it last year through the Manila International Dialogue. So in terms of partnerships, we share best practices with other states. We share what can each organization contribute to a common goal. Example, if it's for victim survivor engagement, or in terms of law enforcement agencies, how can prosecutors collaborate with law enforcers? So that's the partnership aspect. Prevention to prosecution to victim recovery and reintegration, it's all covered. and not just one aspect. So even if the chair is the Department of Justice, we make sure that there is also partnership with the DSWD and other organizations for reintegration and recovery. And for prevention, it's also in partnership with other agencies because it's not just after the fact. We should be doing that. In terms of operations, well, there are several operational solutions to propose solutions to trafficking. So, for example, in terms of the backdoor exits, there's going to be a technical working group to study the backdoor exits, how to strengthen the measures against it. So that's still underway, but the current enforced operational solutions, stronger border control at the airports. So there's been a flack from social media because they seem to misunderstand the intention. We just want to make sure that every departing Filipino passenger has the proper documentation, make sure that they're not being fooled by their recruiters. And in terms of administrative work, early this year, the RCM passed the anti-corruption guidelines for government officials and employees who are involved against trafficking, so that there's better method of prosecuting and holding them liable. So that's the anti-corruption guidelines passed by the IACAT. And then other administrative solutions, or this is related to OSAEC, but we through the RA 11930, the National Coordinating Center against OSAEC and SASAEM was created. So it's under the umbrella of IACAT. And there are other administrative solutions underway. Even if there are new forms of trafficking emerging, like cryptocurrency scams or scam hubs in certain detected areas here in the Philippines, the interagency with the coordination of all of its member agencies doing everything they can to combat the concern.
Wait, technical people, do you have a concern? So that the voice can be captured by that. So we invite everyone to just go a little closer, including you, Clara. Just to the microphone. Okay, considering that there are many best practices that's already adopted in the Philippines, any reaction or any input that you want to add? Yeah, let's have Father Roger and then Lafayette.
Yes, ma'am.
Wow, I love that name. Lafayette.
I don't think there is a problem with laws and policies. The problem is with implementation. Very poor implementation. I had a case just a month ago. Something like they called and the victim is there. And I was trying to get hold of somebody from IACAT. And when I called, I was told that, no, you cannot do that. You have to go to the police, report to the police, and things like that. And I said, here's an urgent case. And I'm calling you because I don't know what to do. And this is holiday. And things like that. No. You have to follow the protocols and things like that. And I said, if the victim is there, they don't know what to do, and they are afraid, this is really a BS. So that's one thing. Another thing is that, as you have said already in the airport, I've been traveling, attending meeting, and getting out of the airport is something like irritating. Before getting in, they have to see my passport and everything. At the counter, before getting into the how do you call that? The gate. Before getting out of, there is another before getting into the plane, and another one when you're whatever. So they are checking us at least 5 times. And I guess it's not about the documentation. It is the corruption in the airport. That's now. My suggestion is maybe the members of like the DOJ or whoever is prosecuting should not be politically appointed. It should be a career, so they will not be afraid to run after because I think somebody is protecting somebody, and that's the problem. And we'll not be. We've been talking about this. You discuss how it is being done, and I said, how can, the government, let's say there are cameras there, they can really follow up every case in details, but nothing is being done because somebody's kissing the ass of somebody. And that's where the problem is. And it's so frustrating. Something like, the leaders that we have in the diocese, they are telling me, no, we have to have this and to have that. And I said, we are a church. It's not our duty to run after them. We are collaborating with the government, but our job is to provide pastoral care. We are not into, because we don't have the power and authority and the capacity to do it. But they are telling me, you are not doing anything because you are not helping. And I said, because we are not supposed to do that.
So you're saying, Father, that all the laws are in place already, but there are some problems with
Yeah, we have,
implementation.
attending the meeting po, international meeting, they really look at us. They said that the Philippines is doing wonderful. But I am just not saying anything. Here I am talking like this because we are here. But I said, my goodness, if they just know. Because we are in Tier 1 in the U.S. Department. And that's wonderful. But in reality, the corruption is really killing the initiative of good government agencies and NGOs.
Okay. And then let's hear first from Lafayette.
Lafayette. Good morning, everyone. I'm with the National Commission of Muslim Filipinos, ma'am. So I'm just calling your attention, ma'am, your office. Maybe if you could invite us, you can invite us to collaborate with your office in terms of, doing this, protecting our, especially yung mga uneducated na coming from the south, in the south. Just to share my experience when I traveled in a back door. But we are documented, but per our experience, we still witnessed those traveling, going to Malaysia, Sabah, without documentation. We could just barely see them and then witness what they're doing in Sabah. But the thing is, many of these people coming from everywhere in Mindanao, traveling to Sabah for greener pastures, and sad to say, some of these people go there. Maybe some are minors or in any walks of life. They just go there for greener pasture. So the thing is, maybe our office at this point in time, because that time we had no office in Zamboanga, but right now we have an office in Zamboanga. Maybe we could also do something to also, but because our office also tends to process documentation, like when you start applying for passport, we issue certification just to support your documents to apply for passport. So that's one. Maybe there's something that our office can do to really be aware of this and be part of your advocacy. So I'd like to invite your office to inform our office that we can be a partner to protecting these traffickers. Against
Sir,
traffickers.
Dennis.
Thank you. I'm Dennis from the Department of the Interior and Local Government. We are also with NCMF and member of the Interagency Council Against Trafficking. And just to respond quickly to the guide question, I think Attorney Lara is very clear that cooperation is one of the key
Yes.
on how to go about combating trafficking in person in all of its forms. Ano po? No one agency has the resources to really curb this menace. Ano po? At the domestic scene, interagency really is a model, ano? Not only in the region, Southeast Asia, but as well as globally. Ano po. At the airport, we were able to rescue possible victims of trafficking in person. IACAT issued a secondary protocol. It's irritating because there's this guy, but we changed the strategy now. No? There's this guy in a high chair and checking all the passengers at the immigration. Di ba, no? They are scanning for possible victims, ano? Especially yung young Filipina, and round 2, Middle East,
and
and North
covered,
Africa.
everything is covered.
Yes.
Yes.
So, the numbers would tell us that we were able to offload. Pinapababa natin yan, ano? More than 20,000 lagi, ano?
20,000 for in a month?
No, in
Sure, the numbers here.
we have the numbers
If
in,
you might
ano.
have
But that's the point is cooperation, ano? DOJ, Bureau of Immigration, Aviation Police, and all other players, ano. So ganyan yan, we have a secondary protocol. Cooperation, because transnational crime, such as trafficking in person, is borderless. So really, cooperation domestically as well as at the region and globally is actually one of the key. At the Southeast ASEAN region, we are actually the lead shepherd on works of ASEAN on trafficking in person. Ano po? Tama si Father, ano po? For the last 7 years, we are tier 1. If you will check Wikipedia, and we should correct this, the statement there is somehow negative, ano, if you will read. And I think we should call the attention of ano, no? Kasi tier 1 would seem like we are number 1 in terms of cases of trafficking in person. But in fact, we are tier 1 because we have all the laws, all the mechanisms set, ano po. But I agree with the good father that I think the challenge is on implementation. I'd like to share some example. When we rescued about 30 Filipinas in Johor Bahru in Malaysia, that's a very good cooperation between the Philippine National Police and the Royal Malaysian Police. Ano? It's a direct bilateral cooperation between law enforcement agencies. So I guess it's working. So just to reinforce the idea that
There's a
cooperation.
little discomfort, but that's part of the things.
Yes. So that's it, ano. And moving to my other point on the guide question. I think awareness is number 1 challenge still, ano, in the Philippines, because if we can develop some sort of an early warning system, so that we would know in the communities, especially if there's an ongoing illegal recruitment for sex trafficking or labor or forced labor or all other, even organ trafficking now is the incidence is growing, ano. And this would entail the cooperation between and among all the stakeholders in the community, whether national government agency, law enforcement, especially the community. Now, DOJ and DILG as early as 2010 issued a circular organizing a local committees on anti-trafficking /BAUSI. There are 2 laws, RA 9208, 9262, help me, attorney, on violence against women. And all cities, municipalities, and provinces in the Philippines are required to organize one. And the membership are non-government actors. So, the other question is, how can religious groups or CSOs in general participate in combating trafficking in person? I guess let's be very active in our communities and be proactive in seeking membership to this local.
What was that name again of the
It's
organization?
LCAT Bausi. Sorry, the Philippine bureaucracy is marred with ano ba yan? A lot of acronyms. Ano?
Yeah.
Local committees on anti-trafficking, especially women and children, because that's our most vulnerable
So it's
sector.
under the DILG?
No, it's local government unit.
Okay.
In every
Under-
city,
Under
municipality,
the
and
mayor's
province.
office?
Under the mayor's office, under the
Okay.
provincial governor's office. And I would
LGU.
encourage, LGUs po, and I'd like to encourage everyone, the accreditation for membership to so many local special bodies, from the barangays po, from the barangays to the, is a continuing process. Para siyang registration, so that you can be member of all of these. There's a lot, Father and Ma'am said, council, local council for anti-trafficking,
Kasi
council
merong
for
child
protection of
nutrition in the
child,
barangay level.
local council for the protection of children, so peace and order, name it. We have more than 30 in the local setting. So I guess that's my sharing muna.
Yeah, that was a very good sharing, Dennis. Reverend Marie.
Yeah, okay. My program is anti-human trafficking and migrant ministry, dealing with repatriation of abused OFWs and even seafarers na they were victims of a lot of abuse, especially during COVID pandemic, but one of my concerns is that in 2013 we have 3 women from Malaysia who were able to return. They were sex trafficked. We filed a case, and DOJ helped us, IACAT helped us. But until now, we have not heard any news, and most of them are, 2 of them have gone abroad again, because they did not receive any update from the court, DOJ. I have one contact before, a young lawyer also, that he said that it's in Malolo's court, but we were not notified, and it's 2013, so prosecution is not that not that fast, and then we have Syria. We call them Syria 52. They have returned here already. Maybe you know about what happened in Syria. Part of the 52 are 2 young women. They were able to go to Syria at age 13. And Alea, or Nadia, she has 2 names, was able to return home at age 26, 13 siya umalis, 26 siya nakabalik, So, implementation of the laws, in the in the airport, they could see, yung 13 years old, hindi ba yun makikita, very young age, kahit pa nakaabaya yan, makikita pa rin that there are children, going out of the country and trafficked for many years and abused for many years, and now that they're here, I think they filed a case against DFA. There's no DFA now, in our
DFA,
yeah. Because siyempre yung immigration talaga ang malaki ang may responsibility, why they were able, plus recruitment, illegal recruitment, plus immigration na nagsama. So the result is traffic women, young women. So I think sa implementation talagang dapat consistent, hindi yung ngayon stricto, later meron ulit, and we heard from these women that they were asked to line up to this line, at the airport, because that immigration officer is friendly to the recruiter or to the agency, to the trafficker, no? And that's the advice that they give to the women, no? Dito kayo, no? Kasi yan, hindi kayo po question diyan, no? So corruption, no, is one issue, but siguro yung sa yung root, no, di ko alam kung nabanggit, siguro alam naman to ng DOJ. Yung root talaga is poverty in the Philippines, no? Unless we address the root cause of trafficking, no, tuloy-tuloy yung yung problema na ito hangga't hindi narurot talaga, no, na nabibigyan ng sagot yung to. So and Ma'am Lara, Attorney Lara, there used to be a partnership talaga, no, from between DOJ and NGOs. We used to have a lot of training before COVID, no. I hope it will resume, no, para yung kasi very, very helpful no, yung yung training, no, education among us, among advocates, no, advocates of anti-human trafficking. So I hope it will resume soon, no, since medyo okay naman yung ating
May I also say something? Unless you wanted to respond.
Please go ahead.
Reverend
Catherine.
Kathy.
So it's Reverend Kathy. This sounds so formal, Catherine. So I'm not Filipino. I'm Korean American, and I'm working in a U.S. church. And my area is anti-human trafficking and migrant ministry. So some of my questions I say as a qualifier, and my comments may come out of my ignorance and my not knowing fully about the situation. But maybe the questions can be clarifying for our discussion nonetheless. So this concept of forced labor, when I hear that that's kind of one of the, at least our focus for today, I don't hear forced labor. I hear about illegal recruitment, I hear about OSAEC. So I wonder, it's again, is it my ignorance? There seems to be like a bifurcation of that which is labor trafficking and that which is sex trafficking. But you hear even in a survivor story today, it can happen together in the same person, in the same body. There's no bifurcation. In the policies, yes, there may be. So I wonder, when you talk about implementation, I appreciate that discussion. I'm wondering if my perception, and maybe it's a biased one because of, again, my ignorance maybe, but illegal recruitment doesn't have the same consequences as a OSAEC situation. So I wonder, I'm not accustomed to hearing about forced labor with the same weight, with the same gravity in this kind of setting. So that's more of a curiosity. If I'm wrong, I'm happy to hear a correction or a qualification. But another unrelated but still kind of related question, as we think about collaboration and, Philippines, I understand, you may talk about resilience, and you're watching my own volcano, what will happen? When will the next super typhoon hit? When we'll get these alerts, from the National Disaster Risk, I think we all get those alerts on our phone. But is disaster risk and resilience also part of the IACAT collaboration and partnership? I just wondered if that, you mentioned that even as you opened with some of your comments, that resilience doesn't happen after, it happens even before. And so I wonder if that has already been explored and it's already happening in LGU level. It might be, and it cannot be something that only happens at the national level, but it really needs to start at the ground, wherever that may be, in Bicol or wherever the next calamity may happen. So those are some questions, but I don't know if it's helpful just as an intervention.
Probably we can have Attorney Lara address some of those, and even Denise. Yeah. Let me work backwards. So I'll start with Reverend Catherine. So for Reverend Catherine, the query is on the severity or the gravity of forced labor.
Yeah, forced. I just don't hear that term used when I am
actually
among advocates.
in terms of human trafficking is the third world's largest crime next to arms smuggling and drug trafficking. So drug trafficking is first, and then arms smuggling, and then human trafficking. But it's not as pronounced as arms smuggling and drug trafficking. And from the perspective, perhaps, of human trafficking from the developed countries. Actually, in preparation for this event, I also watched TED videos. Even if I already know trafficking, I watched TED talks on trafficking. So there's this human trafficking hidden in plain sight in a TED talk, and she shared there that there is actually a website called slaveryfootprint.org survey. So if you're living in a third world, in a developed country, by checking what do you do in a day, what do you buy, you can see how many slaves work for you. So from the people who paint your nails to the people who clean your car,
The coffee you drink.
the coffee you drink, how many people there are in forced labor? How many people who prepare what you eat, or the cinema house, everything from the time you wake up until the time you sleep on a regular basis. So maybe you can explore that also, checking that. It's slaveryfootprint.org/survey. You can Google it. So that's probably a perspective you can explore. So it's also something I just found out about last night in preparation for this event. But in terms of forced labor, I think what makes it severe is that they're made to work against their will or in conditions that are inhumane, because the other term for human trafficking is modern slavery. So they are deprived of food, they're deprived of choice, they are given severe punishment for not meeting quotas or demand, or for example, in the case of domestic workers in the Middle East, they're even abused and some are killed. So maybe that's one area you can also look into. But I think other people in the group can also share with regards to the concern or the question of Reverend Catherine. So, but
Well, really more the comment. I don't use that term forced labor when I am among Filipino colleagues. I don't hear that term. So I wondered, is that term helpful for us? Is that the one you use? Is it also used even in government speak when you talk about forced labor? Is it?
Or is that the term you use, or you use
It's not as familiar. I guess because it's my bias that I don't hear that term nearly as much. I'm just more likely to just hear about labor trafficking or sex trafficking, but not a forced labor. So maybe it is a question just to understand from others. Do you use that term? Is that a term that's familiar?
When there are cases, before there was a case of forced labor among children, when they were forced to work for a sardines factory, so it was brought out in public,
In that kind of
because of that incident of forced labor among children.
Okay.
It's still I don't know in the Visayas, where children are forced to work in the fields, in rice field, in
leave
coconut.
school?
They don't go to school actually, They are forced to work in sugarcane plantation.
Especially during harvest time.
Yeah, especially during harvest time. It's still forced labor. Yeah. And children and women and children are victims of forced labor.
Forced labor.
Yes, from my reading of domestic law, forced labor happens on children, for children ages 15 and younger. However, there's a condition or an exemption that if the child is working under the supervision of parents, say in the rice field, because that's where forced labor is actually usually happening in the industries, in agriculture, maybe manufacturing, fisheries. We've seen footage of children, doing the diving without the aid of. But that's I think that's one area, because of the situation in the country. I think yes, we do not highlight that because most of us are desperate to earn anything. As long as they are under the supervision of parents, they do not fall under the, they do not violate the So I guess that's one area where we can improve so that we can
And that's why
highlight.
DepEd teachers really go to the field after 2 weeks, because by
check.
that time, to check to bring the
Yeah.
students back to their
Yes.
classrooms.
Yes, yes.
So I think that's on that particular. But forced labor happens not only on children, but
Of course.
if the work condition is inhumane, they work long
Yeah.
hours,
Yes.
they receive small pay.
Small pay, yes.
That categorizes under forced labor as
Yeah.
well.
And I think that one time it was popularized on TikTok about this Filipina working for an American family in the US, and suddenly this American, on TikTok, oh, my yaya is finally going back to the Philippines after 30 years, and they expressed love for her. But, she was roasted in the comments. She was only able to go back to the Philippines after 30 years. That's slavery. What you did to her was slavery. So,
Mm.
yeah. So there were those kinds of issues. Okay, so going back to our guide questions, I think we're able to identify the GUs. What else do you expect?
Yeah.
So
Thank
that
you.
we'll also be able to bring this to our religious organizations.
Thank you, Heidi. Aside from membership to these local
Yes,
bodies,
yes.
or committees, boards, there's a lot.
Mm.
I think because we believe prevention should be where our efforts are, not on the response or rescue or other after the fact. Because I think prevention is where every stakeholders can have a very big space to participate in. So in all of our spheres, we can actually I would suggest awareness raising can be very potent.
Mm.
Look at so that, for example, members of our organization would be very aware of the signs and symptoms, if we may use that term, of to warn our and
Empowering them, educating, especially the young, no?
and of course the advocacies are there already. So I guess, but I would agree that we learned a lot during the pandemic. We were able to produce 4 webinars on barangay health emergency response team, teaching our tanods how to from wearing the PPEs to bringing the positive patients to the hospital. Zero budget, we produce webinars in our office, and of course in cooperation with DOH and others. I think part of our awareness raising can be episodes, seasons of webinars on how to combat trafficking in person.
Yes, that is really true, Sir Dennis, because in Religions for Peace, I think for the last 3 years, there's always been a summit on anti-human trafficking. And this is participated not just by the Philippines, but Malaysia, Indonesia, and even China. And what is so funny, every time you have China, is that they don't want anything bad being said about them. They immediately leave the meeting, but they are equally the culprits of human trafficking, and it's really recognized by almost all of the chapter countries for Religions for Peace.
I think quickly, because you mentioned earlier about TikTok, but we can reverse that, and we can use TikTok as a potent, tool, to promote, awareness on. So I think, and I think the reach is far wider than the usual formal orientation or trainings on. Okay, so I guess that can
Or
be
else,
a
not-
good way forward.
Yeah, I attended a Public Relations Society meeting yesterday, and they have social media content producers that's really on the grassroots level, that can really reach a wider audience rather than this high-paid celebrities, I think that
That
probably
may
you can tap also those personalities.
It's really a double-edged sword, isn't it, though, social
Yes,
media?
social media.
Because this idea that, here now we are trying to have everybody register their SIM cards, right? But at the same time, this awareness that, will I click on this scam that is coming to me in my own message? Oh, I can click this and I can get money, I can get a job, and in the meantime, BDO is telling me don't click on any of these, and at the same time, TikTok can be the worst place You know,
Yes.
it's yes a very good place for influencers, but
Yes.
it's also a very bad place, a very vulnerable place for children.
That
So it's a
would be
double-edged
because-
sword.
Yes, right.
Yes.
That's very true.
Yeah.
Because you know, organized crimes are past
Using all.
learner than the law
Yes.
enforcers.
So
Because
they're smart.
during the pandemic,
They are a
we've
step
seen an
ahead.
increase. Yes, they are step.
Yeah.
We've seen increase in incidents of trafficking, online trafficking, using the technology.
Technology is.
And even the story of Peter Scully, that's on TikTok. That's why when you read, you see that, you're hearing.
Yes.
The one in Cagayan de Oro.
Cagayan de Oro.
These.
Mhm.
Attorney Lara, I agree with both of you in terms of the social media aspect. So if they're using TikTok to use against
Or
the
recruit.
efforts on trafficking or
Mm.
to recruit, then you should also use it in our favor in the fight against trafficking. But I also agree with Reverend that it's also very tricky since a lot of the reports of illegal recruitment say that they were recruited from social media and they
Mhm.
only met their recruiter when they were in the airport.
Mm.
So it's when it's too good to be true, you don't need to show up in a government office for anything, then that's a red flag because they just apply through social media. And the reason they buy it because it's very easy on the applicant that they don't have to show up physically. So in terms of, but let me address the other queries as quickly as possible. So in terms of, let me work backwards. Reverend po, with regard to the case, thank you for flagging that case. Was that 2013? I wasn't definitely not in IACAT yet. But please give me the details so I can follow it up. But for present time, we're already, there's 25 anti-trafficking task forces all over the country. They take care of anti-trafficking cases. It's composed of prosecutors and law enforcement agents. So maybe we can, this is Bulacan po ba? Or
Sabi na sa Malolos.
Malolos.
Because
Please
the
let us know so
trafficker
that we
is
can
from Bulacan.
bump that case to the task forces. But we have 25 task forces all over the country. The latest is BARM Task Force, which was launched last May.
Yes.
So we're strengthening
Very needed.
yes, po, the efforts on that. So just give me the case number. In terms of immigration, if the case was from 2013 of people na they get out of the country even if they're underage, I really have I cannot say that I know everything that happened with regard to that. But in terms of the present guidelines, maybe you know this from social media, there's been a flack on how strict IOs are.
The yearbook.
Yes. I'm not from the Bureau of Immigration, but they are our colleague in the IACAT, and this is the data they shared. No? So from January 1 to May 15, 2023, there were 2,527,91 processed Filipino departures. And then from that, there were 39, out of the 2 million, 2.5, 39,000 referred for secondary inspection. So because you have a first inspection and then if they see that it's doubtful, you go to secondary inspection. And out of the 2.5 million, only 1.5457% are referred to secondary inspection. So even if there are a lot of memes on social media, there are a lot of TikTok videos about IOs, it's really just 1.5457% referred to secondary inspection, meaning there's a 98.43 chance of you passing through secondary inspection in the Philippines. And then this is the breakdown of allowed and deferred. So in terms of the present, I can't speak for the past, of course, but in terms of the present measures, we revised the guidelines on departure formalities. It's still not published, but the technical working group already finished it, so that the IOs have less discretion to determine if this is a doubtful purpose of travel. So we also invited the NCMF to that TWG, sir. So if you're leaving the country for study, then this is the there's basic documents for you to leave. But if ever you're an OFW or you're leaving for Hajj or any other purpose, then there's a set of guidelines. And it's going to be published so that everybody will be informed. So hindi pa po siya napapublish, pero natapos na po namin siya. So abangan po for that. And then the other concern, I think you raised one more, corruption. It's
Plus partnership.
partnership, yes. We'll let you know po. We have trainings with the barangays in partnership with the DILG. So maybe we can explore trainings with NGOs. We do have NGOs on board, but we will reconnect with all the NGOs that we have been in partnership for many years po. And then just to address the other queries, para naman po fair. I think that before, sir, it was already before, ma'am. You can.
May I add something, ma'am, before I forget what's in my mind? Because I'd like to go back to what Ma'am Heidi's concerned about the role of religious sectors in helping us with our advocacy, because in our community, to whom we are listening, most of our we believe people is our ulamas and imams. Every time what they say, we believe, we follow. So it is important that I think our ulamas and imams must be aware of what's going on in the community. So I appreciate what Reverend has said about an organization. Well, I look forward that one of our imams will be part of your group, ma'am. Please encourage, and then maybe with Sir Dennis' organization, maybe they can encourage our ulama in every community to be active part of this advocacy that we are having to protect our communities. So maybe what I'm trying to say is that our imams and ulama must be oriented with what is going on in the community, so that and somehow they would include it in their sermons, because an imam can talk anything about what's going social issues, no? They can relate it with our religious context, no? Name it, every issue can be related to religious context.
Yes.
Same with our brother Roger.
I agree with that, sir, in terms of the role of the religious organizations. They play a big role in the information dissemination, the information campaign, to get the word out there, so that it's not just on social media, but it's also part of this.
Because if I may just add, ma'am, attorney, the only place that we go, most of us in the community, Muslim community, I'm talking of Muslim communities, is if not going to work or to their relatives, every Friday we go to mosques. So that's how we get information. So that's very important. The role of our imams and ulamas are very important
And if I
in disseminating information.
If I may add to that, sir, just to latch on that, aside from the perspective of victims, maybe we can also look at it from the perspective of maybe there are possible perpetrators of human trafficking in your own audience. So just to remind them that our employees are human beings and that. So let's also not discount that perspective with regard to that.
Okay, so far we've been having really good discussion. I think we've satisfied most of the questions that's been given to us. Yes.
So, just an addition po. My work as Executive Secretary of the Episcopal Commission for Pastoral Care of Migrants and Itinerant People is one of the things that I'm doing is to organize the DCAT formation, the Diocesan Committee for Against Human Trafficking. And I've been traveling in the different dioceses in the Philippines. Recently, I was in Zamboanga, Kilipawan, and things like that. And there is really a need for, and I was looking at because I was new in the job, and I was looking at the way my staff was doing it. I was thinking to myself, there's, in this case, we have to be innovative. You mentioned that they are creative in perpetuating things, and we have to be innovative as well. So I was thinking that we have to change, because our intention is to go to the dioceses, to the parishes, not just in the dioceses, so we have to cover the whole Philippines. In fact, in September 2022, we had a meeting with the different departments, TOJ, YACAT, and so on and so forth. And we would like to have a partnership, but until now we're not able to do anything. One thing that I am doing also, one of the things that I am doing is attending meeting, international meeting, like the Bishops of Federation of Asian Bishops Conference. I attended meeting also, the presentation of the DMW in UN in Switzerland, and also ICM's International Migration Commission. And one thing that I noticed that there's so much goodwill in doing things. I met the ambassador in Switzerland and in Geneva and said that because Filipinos would like to travel. So I thought of doing something about the formation that we are doing in the commission. And I said that the basic problem is the Filipino migration mentality. We have that you are not good enough if you are not going abroad. So something like, so somebody has has to do everything, even resorting to not secure, not legal ways. So that's one thing. But our educational system is like that. Recently, we've heard the DepEd offering this course because it needs there's a great need for it abroad. BMW, they're shortening the length of processing paper. And you know what it is. It's not just helping Filipinos to go abroad, but it's also a very good ground for hatching these things and things like that. And therefore, I believe that in the formation that we are doing, we have to change it. You don't have to go abroad in order to something like I met Filipinos. Why did you come here? Oh, because my relatives are in USA and we're not able. And people are asking, wala kang class? Oh, yeah, wala. So that's one thing. And I've been listening to the discussions also, human trafficking. So the focus is on the victim or the traffic and the traffickers. You mentioned one important things here. You know that we, the consumers, the consumers. So it's not just dissemination of information about human traffickings, but we, consumers, should be aware of not buying such products. When we go to the internet and view these video clips or things like that, we are part of that. We are all or buying something. So the education should also go to the consumer, not just the trafficked in because without consumer there is no
supply.
There's no supply and demand.
Yes.
Nothing is happening. And I believe that now I am organizing a program, a formation program for other dioceses here in Asia, because I believe that we should tell them to be more aware, because the Filipinos are being victimized abroad. So it's not happening here. Their nationals are being victimized here also. So there should be really collaboration. All of us should work hand in hand. We cannot say that, oh, they are Chinese or they are Koreans or they are Vietnamese. It's up to them. They can also say that that's your office, Mama. What's that office?
Yeah.
And you know, some of the condominiums there are where foreign nationals are being trafficked. So it's it's just around the corner of government agencies who are supposed to protect people, and I guess it's our concern really.
Yes po, I think in terms of information dissemination, just to connect it to the discussion a while ago, we can also share probably through it, because a lot of people look up to you and listen to you, but sometimes you don't know if how are their individual lives, if they can be prone to trafficking or they are the trafficker. So you can also just
They traffic themselves.
yes. I think that the term for that is compliant victims,
Ay,
because
compliant.
they know that it's illegal but they go there.
Yeah.
So it's really religious people who go to church, sometimes they listen more to you than to the government or to the laws or to Facebook. So you really have an important
Or they
role to
blame us
play.
more.
You have an important role to play.
Reverend Catherine, by the way, somebody came in to say time is up. We'll listen to
Oh.
Reverend Catherine and then Mary Ann very quickly.
If
and then
I've
we'll
already
end.
spoken so much, so if Marianne wants to speak,
Okay.
I'll stand down.
I'm working in an international NGO, Compassion International, and we are partnering with 400 plus evangelical churches around the Philippines. So we work with poorest of the poor, children, and parents. One thing that I can say we can contribute as an FBO, faith-based organization, is to educate parents, thousands of parents within our program through partnering at the local level. And I'm glad hearing from the ILG that it's existing now. And then some of our churches are already partners or part of the barangay council or the local council for the protection of children. I'm glad there is also LCAP. One thing that I wish to help our partners at the ground level is to have an access on the IEC materials, both online and printed, that can serve the community people. Because as of now, we are not only working at the urban and rural areas, but we are into indigenous peoples group. So maybe those IECs that are friendly or very understandable for local people.
Yeah, because that's what the DOH does with the religious faith-based organizations. They share their IECs with us so that we can tell our people. They even prepare scripts, which we can share with our congregation. Probably DOJ and LG can do the same.
They have many materials.
Because we already have 6 adults from the Manubu tribe who were trafficked locally.
Even the
Just this year, and we funded for them to go back to the province. So it's my one of my wishes as part of the organization. Thanks.
Okay, so thank you so much for everyone's participation. We really appreciate Roger, Marie, and the rest, and of course Denise and Attorney Lara for the sharing that we have just had. So what will happen with this information is that everything is collected. I'll also submit a report to support also everything that has been discussed, and then the organizers, the G20 Interfaith Forum Association, will collate this and bring this to a bigger sphere, which is in India in September. So and then probably, my opinion, probably because we are also local here, and with CBCP, Father is here now, we can probably also refine this discussion and then bring it back to DOJ and the ALG, and probably we can reconvene, probably, sir, one of these days, because if this is the first and the last, we will not be effective. But specifically to this topic, if we can reinforce and meet again, and we have your contact information, not all your contact information, but your email ads, I think we can,
And it's the Philippine initiative.
It's the Philippine initiative.
It's good to have our,
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, sorry, I don't feel like I could sleep tonight if I don't ask this question. Because we've been talking about partnerships and collaboration, and this question can be out of ignorance, so please, if you have an answer to it. But is there actually a local and accurate directory of faith-based organizations that are working specifically on trafficking that can be
We have the Catholic Church is member of FIMA, the
FIMA,
Philippine
yeah.
Interfaith.
Yeah. NCCP, Evangelical Church.
PCEC.
PCEC.
Yes.
And
So-
we will reach out to our Muslim brothers.
And there's the
sisters.
loose organization, Uniharmony Partners Manila and Religions for Peace.
Okay.
Yes.
And that's available for like other organizations, say, because a lot of these issues, especially trafficking, intersect with other issues like environmental
Right.
organizations. I know PopCom, for example, is just starting now to integrate gender and climate change and migration into their mandates. So yeah, so at some point we need the faith-based organizations to come in and would want to reach out. So,
That's a good question. If there's a list, can we have it?
yes.
Share.
Like a public list would be.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So that if ever you need to call, those are
A
the
public
people that
directory,
we work
for
on.
example.
Okay, yeah.
FIMA.
Let's share our contacts. But just quick statistics. Lastly, there are about 14,000 CSOs accredited by our barangays. That's big, but that's bad news because there are 42,000 barangays. But at the city, municipal, provinces, there are 25,511 accredited civil society organizations. That includes civic organization, foundation, and everything. So my last message is there are rooms for participation, especially our organizations. You are welcome in the local government units, and let's meet there and move forward on this